And we're live. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. I've been discovering the dangers of walking in nature this week because I got an insect bite on sort of Tuesday, and by about Wednesday, I got to hospital because it wasn't going down. I've been jabbed with various needles and had my blood tested and whatever. So I'm kind of
Seriously?
grateful to work from home
Oh,
where it's safe.
Lord. Stay, stay,
So
stay in your house.
yeah, stay home where it's safe. Yeah, working from home's not, it's better than it's
Oh
cracked up to be,
my.
apparently. Yeah. So apart from
Wow.
that, though, it's been, business
Oh,
wise, the bit of the week that I've been available for has been good. How about you?
okay. Well, yeah, it's Father's Day here, so I'm gonna have a fun day with the kids. And so, all the dads listening, happy Father's Day to you all. We're broadcasting this live into 3 or 4 of our groups and pages. So, if you're with us live, welcome. We're going to have a great podcast session today. And we're going to jump right into it in just a moment or two. Today's topic is a hot one. I think it's a really good one. It's all about advertising, and in particular, what to do when your ad costs really go crazy and skyrocket. And so we've got sort of a set of suggestions for everyone to think through. And I think if you are spending money on advertising, this podcast episode is going to be particularly helpful to you. So, Michael, any initial thoughts on the topic of the day? This was yours, I think. You brought this one to the party.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is it's just one of the many kind of asteroid storms. I don't know what metaphor is appropriate for sort of things slamming violently into you that Amazon sellers have been dealt with in the last few months, particularly if you're in the UK. We had Brexit and then the shortage of raw materials and costs going up, shipping costs going up, as you've talked about. But Amazon ads, I believe, have gone up 30% in the last 4 months on average, which is as a percentage of revenue on the platform. Which is pretty frightening. Now that it
Yeah,
could be out by quite a few percent and still be pretty frightening. So it's
sure.
it's a
Yeah,
reality we have to deal with, and I
yeah,
don't see that trend actually getting any better. We can talk about that, but it's definitely a skill set that's always been important, and I think it's a survival level.
yeah.
I think it's that vital.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, well, it's going to be a great podcast. We're going to kick it off in just a minute. If you're watching with us live, thank you for joining us. We will be respectful of your time. We'll try to be done in an hour. And hang out with us as you can. Leave us a comment in the comment box underneath where you're watching this and say hello. Tell us where you're listening from, and we'd love to have your thoughts or questions as it relates to advertising. That could be advertising on Amazon or beyond, and so that'll help us flesh out the topic of the day. And it would be wonderful to have this be a dialogue that's super productive for everyone involved. And so let us know where you're listening from and watching from and all that. Okay, we ready to kick this thing off, man?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
All
Let's do
right,
this
all
thing.
right. We got people popping in here. We got people saying hello. Jacob from near Ottawa. All right, that's fantastic. And other people are popping in here. So let's go. Let's do the podcast. I'll kick it off and we'll just jump right into it. Go from there. We ready?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Are your ad costs skyrocketing? If so, this episode is for you. We're going to discuss 7 things you can do when ad costs skyrocket out of control. Michael, are you ready to jump into this fun topic?
I am. Yeah, I like the way everything's fun for you. I'm not sure that ad
It
costs
is a fun
skyrocketing.
time. It's a learning exercise, right?
Yeah, intellectually fun. When your average costs are skyrocketing, I think is less fun, but certainly dealing with it is really, really important. That's true.
Okay, Michael, are you ready to dive into this depressing topic?
Yeah, man.
All right, let's do it. So you mentioned a moment ago why you wanted to tee this up before we were doing the podcast recording. So what's the gist behind this whole topic? Why did you bring this to our attention today?
Well, I think it's probably not just on Amazon. In fact, I'm pretty certain it isn't, but particularly on Amazon, ad costs have gone up this year. I think in the first 4 months of the year, the stats I've seen say that it could be up to 30% higher than last year, and that's just in a few months. Even if that's not going to be true across the board, but I have seen quite a few of my clients, particularly the big sellers in the 10K collective, have really experienced some pretty big hikes in certain markets. So it's always an important skill anyway, even in good times and in bad times. It's essential for survival to get your ad costs under control.
Yeah, absolutely right. I saw one stat. I was just kind of searching around for the latest info. According to eMarketer, the overall ad market and digital spending increased by 20% this year so far as of April 2021. That's, of course, across all ad platforms, not just Amazon. Suffice it to say, ad spending is up. That means your competition is up. That means your success metrics might be challenged or go down. And so it just means a more competitive environment. So let's, with that backdrop or with that reality, let's just dive right into the problem solving, situation. What can you do if your ad costs are skyrocketing? So when we work with our clients in our coaching and consulting practice, we do have this occur frequently. And so we do have a set of suggestions, and we're going to walk through those now. There's 7 of them. And so let's just jump into them. So the first one is you want to operate your advertising as a part of your marketing budget overall, and your marketing and advertising budget in totality should be in a range of 8 to 15%, we like to say, of your top line revenue. So for example, if you made $100,000, if your business generated $100,000 in top line sales, then you would want to be spending between $8,000 and $15,000 a year in total on your marketing. Now, some consumer packaged goods companies push that higher, even up to 22%. And you can Google around and see the statistics. But you want to operate in a range, and you want to operate in a range so that you don't blow out your profit and accidentally spend all your money on advertising and look down at the end of the month or quarter and say, what happened to my profit? Where did it all go? And like, oh my gosh, I was spending way too much on advertising. So operating within a range is just a good budget discipline and practice. And over time, what you'll realize is sometimes you're in the low end of that range, like, oh, I'm only spending like 6% or 8% of my top line sales right now on ads and marketing. Other times it'll be at the high end of the range. You'll be like, oh my gosh, what in the world? I'm spending 20%. And so you want to try to stay within that zone of kind of tolerable ad spend. So that's the first thought. Michael, I don't know if you have input or ideas on that. What do you say to your clients, or what do you hear from your mastermind group? You're muted, buddy.
First of all, yeah, it's a great discipline. Very similar thoughts on that. It can be, although that's less of a problem given what we've said, that you can be under advertising and actually missing out on profitable revenue. But equally, not having a range is very, very dangerous. So having one and keeping an eye on it is the most important thing. I mean, simply having a number and monitoring to that number, if you do nothing else, it will really, really begin to get things under control. And if it's totally out of control, that's the first thing. Don't be reactive, emotionally driven. It sounds like a weird way of putting it, but a lot of us are. We panic when we see the ranking drop and we pull the nearest lever, which is ad spend. So that's the first thing I would say. Secondly, the average cost on Amazon gone up so much. I don't think it's just because we're having an extreme 2021, although we are. Amazon's got huge drivers behind why they are going to be increasing the ad costs, I think, forever, just as Facebook ads are now the way to access Facebook. Organic reach has gone down, similar with Google ads as a percentage of the market. So I think we have to assume that going forward, it's going to get more expensive. So you may be on the more like 15% range, which may change what you choose to sell and the profit margins you find acceptable in your products before ads, because I would expect the ads percentage to just be higher than it was before, sadly.
Yeah. Well, Amazon advertising costs are going to go up because about 2 or 3 years ago, they announced that one of their new primary revenue streams is going to be advertising dollars.
Oh, yeah.
So as soon as they put a bullseye on that target, what they're going to do. They're going to optimize for their own outcome, which means that it's going to be more expensive. So it's like,
well, let's be very, very clear about this in case you're trying to delude yourself, poor Amazon sellers, or partial if you sell partly on Amazon. As a first-party seller, they lost $40 billion last year. Prime is a massive driver for them, but there's no growth left in there. There are more Prime subscribers than our households in the US, so I don't think that's going to grow that much. The third-party marketplace is going to grow. The only way that's going to grow is to add to you. Maybe they take 20% as a sales commission, not 15%. That's not going to be good news either. And then it's advertising, and that's growing by far the fastest. So this is not a temporary blip or a temporary storm. I think this is the future, and we just need to learn to manage in this intense environment.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so if you don't know your numbers, then you've got some work to do to figure out what your numbers should, add up to get to add that first concept. And so whenever we have a coaching client that is in a freak out, that's the first thing we always ask them is like, what amount of your ad spend, what amount of your budget is spent on advertising as a top percentage of top line. And frequently they'll be in freak out, but not know that percentage. And so that's you got to channel this nervous energy into productive work. And so that's the first thing. So the second big idea that we always like to talk to people is just to ask them very, very detailed questions about what their goals are for their advertising.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a goal? And it's like if you ask somebody like, do you have a goal for your advertising? Most people are like, you're an idiot. Of course I do. It's to make money. I'm like, no, I'm not an idiot. I'm asking you a more granular question. So let's break it down for a couple minutes here. There are a lot of ways in which you advertise for different outcomes. And so here's 4 or 5 of them. You could advertise to acquire a prospect, meaning that they don't have to buy from you. You just get their contact information or you pixel them or whatever. So that's acquiring a prospect is one, goal for your advertising. Second one is, of course, to acquire a paying customer. Okay. The third one could be to build an asset like your email list or your text, SMS, messaging list. Whatever it is. Fourth one could be to generate a second sale or third sale from existing customers. So there's a lot of different, specific granular outcomes. And you want to think through, what am I doing with my ad spend specifically? And is there specific areas that is not working or that is working? And I'll just say, like, the most costly advertising is to acquire a paying customer on the front end of an ad, because you think about it, it's like the hardest thing. It's like trying to do a double backflip or something. You've got to put your brand in front of somebody and they've never heard of you before or seen you before, and you want them to buy a product from you. They must have a real burning need for that item. And you're the magic solution that they don't even, this is like, yes, I need this. That's a rarity. More likely, they're like, do I need that? I don't know. Maybe. Who are you? And so that's just a tough sell. So your most expensive advertising is probably to acquire a paying customer. And then you want to break it down and say, well, if that's the one that's fallen apart, what can I do to acquire a prospect? Or what can I do to acquire a second or third purchase from existing customers? And you want to work through these end goals with budget and strategy behind each one.
Yeah, absolutely agree about that. I mean, I think a lot of the time when there's a problem in the business, indeed in life, but let's stick to business, that's what we're here for, is it comes down to 2 things. Not measuring, which we've already talked about. If you don't have an objective or you don't have some measurement of something, then often that's when it's wildly out of control. And before you even do that, having a clear reason why you do stuff. Yeah. And as you say, making more money often translates into make more revenue. Now, that is valid if you're trying to check market adoption for a new product, but that's the only time that's valid. Otherwise, revenue is a horrible reason for doing anything, because revenue is just money that flows past you, but you don't get to keep it. And it's so easy to forget that, even though we intellectually know it. And I think everything needs to be driven by profit now or profit in the future. For example, acquiring a customer, as you say, very expensive sometimes. But if you can sell to that customer repeatedly in future, if you've got a direct-to-consumer site, e.g. Shopify, then you can that's an asset that produces future cash flows that wipe out the cost of acquiring them and then gives you profit. Whereas what often happens on Amazon is, sadly, we don't really acquire customers. So in a way, it's a more brutal economic game. It's simpler, but more brutal. So people muddle up the appropriate ad spend for launch, which needs to be aggressive because you're trying to gain market share, which is the only time when revenue is a meaningful number, I think. I.e., if there's a market of $250,000 a month for a product and you can get 50,000 of those and you're the biggest player, that means something relative to the market. But as soon as you're launched, then if your objective is profit, then the only valid driver for me is profit, which we'll come on to the numbers thing in a second. But I think a classic error is to panic about ranking and ignore your profit margin, and you start spending money in order to rank. That's just an Amazon game. Ranking doesn't mean anything outside of Amazon, or for that matter, Google. They've just gamified you, and it's not what matters. You can't eat
Yeah.
ranking. Your bank manager won't let you take a loan out based on ranking.
Yeah.
It's not 1999. People used to invest on the basis of eyeballs and ridiculous metrics like that, but that isn't the case now. So you have to come back to profit-driven metrics, and everything has to be driven by that, in my opinion.
No, totally agree. And obviously, this is why this podcast is fun, because I'm always talking in generalities about omni-channel selling. So most of my commentary or thought is about holistic marketing, beyond Amazon. And you're always like, wait, okay, for the Amazon seller,
Yeah, sorry to be so Amazon
it's
centric. I
perfect.
got to
No,
talk
it's
to what I
great.
know, but the thing is, actually, Amazon just is a more extreme and brutal and quicker and more obvious version of the other games we got to play. Because if you're obsessed about the Google ranking of your a product page for a particular keyword, for example, okay, so the top three slots probably get, in the search results pages, probably get 70% of the clicks. Great, but are those clicks actually that valuable? You've got to look at the numbers and see, because if they're not, you might actually find, and I've heard this, and you'd know more than me from your broader canvas you look at, but I've heard a lot of people say that you might actually find the optimal position is position number 3 in these results, for example. So you might not want to be as visible if it doesn't make you as much profit.
Yeah.
And that's the only rational reason for doing it, really.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah, no, this is really important. And so, to your point, what you're really doing in Amazon is acquiring a purchase. You're paying for it's pay for purchase,
pretty much, exactly.
And so one purchase, and that it obviously impacts your bestseller ranking.
Yeah.
And in your placement on the charts and all that. So that's what you're doing when you set up your ads in AMS or advertising, Amazon advertising. I always call it AMS. I'm just going to always do that. I don't care. Hopefully people know that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so you're right. That's what you're doing. It is a much simpler mousetrap in a way.
Yeah.
And so you don't have the nuance of thinking about acquiring prospects or paying customers or building your email list, et cetera, et cetera. But nonetheless, you still want to apply the general principles that we're talking about here. Obviously, the advertising system within Amazon gives you feedback on your cost per sale, and the ROAS number. What you're looking at is kind of how much did you spend and how much did it make you in incremental sales. And so that's a very specific set of numbers to play with. And so, but you've got to know those numbers. And so that's tip number 3. So even if you're just only advertising on Amazon right now, or beyond, and you do advertise more broadly in other platforms, the tip number 3 is know your numbers. The biggest number that you want to work at as a marketer is the cost to acquire a paying customer. But there are a lot of other numbers that you want to learn about: the cost to acquire a prospect, the cost per social action, which is a phrase I'll describe in a moment, and cost per click, obviously, and not just cost per click, but cost per click across platforms or ad platforms, and cost per sale. All of these you can Google and find out how to do the tabulation, how to do the math. Many of them are very simple calculations. It's like, get this number and divide. And so, but you want to know these numbers, and you want to learn what is priority for me, and for our business, what is the most important thing I should be focused on. And if you're, in essence, an advertising babe in the woods, and you're just blowing money, you don't have these numbers clear in your mind. You're like, I don't know what any of these are. Well, okay, stop spending very much money before you learn these things. Don't just headlong, go into blowing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars before you really, really understand these things and how they apply to your business. The cost to acquire a customer is probably the most well-known metric for any marketer. And it's what most people focus on. And you'll want to know what that looks like. Again, that's a beyond Amazon phrase or metric, but it's one of the things you want to think through. Getting clarity on these numbers over time is just the mission of the advertising team and the advertiser. And you're the de facto, senior leader of your advertising team. So those are my thoughts. We could go into any one of those in detail. I mentioned the cost per social action. I'll talk about that in a moment if you'd like. But Michael, what are your thoughts just in general on, knowing your numbers.
So, first of all, I completely agree with knowing your numbers. So, you obviously, as you said, you deal with a much broader sort of smorgasbord of ad platforms on a daily basis. It's not like I've never used the other ones, but they're not sort of something I can speak to from lots of experience. So, I'm just going to say that for me, whilst you should know your marketing numbers, they must always, in my opinion, be subordinated to the financial numbers,
Sure.
and they need to be very intimately tied in. And that is a lot of hard work and analytical thinking, and you may not be competent to do it, in which case you've got to get some training, guys. You cannot just ignore it. So here's what I would say about the unit economics numbers. For me, again, on Amazon's rather more brutal, but I think this applies across the board. It's just more obvious on Amazon. First, for your advertising to sales ratio that you've mentioned, if you say, for example, it's 10%, right? First of all, it has to compare to the gross margin of your products. If you're selling a $100 widget and you've got 20% gross margin and you spent 10% on ads, then you've only got 10% left. Now that may or may not be acceptable, but you've got to be realistic about that number. The second thing is then, once you've done your, the gross margin after overheads, advertising, you've still got to cover your overheads. And if you know that for your business, that you spend about 10% of your revenue on overheads, for example, you're making, $1 million a year and you spend 100,000 on overheads, that would be excessive, by the way, but I've seen it. Then you've got to make sure that 10% is going to be covered. So if you've just made 20% gross margin before ads, 10% after ads, and you've got 10% overheads, you've made nothing for the year. And so you've got to make sure it jumps through all of those hoops. And if it doesn't, in the end, whatever you levers you pull in the more micro world of advertising cost cutting, which we can talk about, but in the end, if it doesn't jump through those hoops, there's no point in continuing because you're just selling at no profit and you're not getting any benefit. Amazon, Google, Shopify, whoever is the platforms you're going via will be benefiting and you won't be. So in the end, you may have to just leave it, which is kind of sounds like it's when advertising forces you down the path of thinking about unit economics and product line choice, sadly.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, so I totally agree with that. I was just going to play with the idea of tweaking Jeff Bezos's famous quote, "What your margin is my opportunity." It's more like your advertising mistakes is my margin.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and by the way, true for Sergey Brin and whoever's in charge of Google now. I can't remember. Yeah,
Facebook.
Facebook. 100%. I mean, people put crazy amounts of money through Facebook ads every so often. Mostly in the Amazon world, they mostly stop because it's so terrifyingly ineffective. Now, if you have a direct-to-consumer site, you're more tempted to do it for longer. And I think
Well, there's a key insight there, I think, and that's that most people stop advertising on Amazon quickly because they are advertising for a specific outcome that they can see and clearly understand. Yes. They're advertising for a sale. And so they can see their failure very quickly. Oh my gosh, I just blew $300 and I made 0 sales incremental. Yeah. That is a disaster. I'm shutting this off. Whereas on Facebook, you're like, well, I mean, I'm getting likes to my page. That's valuable, right? So, you have these it's like not critical goals, like, and then in those situations, and you're less clear on your goal outcome, it is easier to blow money and continue to blow money. So anyway, I think that's part of the exercise, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe Amazon sellers are helped by having that clarity,
Yeah, you're right. And to your point there, just 2 things. I mean, first of all, extremely good point that if you don't have goal clarity, it doesn't just result in mediocre results. It's a disaster potentially because of what you just said, for example. And the second thing is people muddle up once you're outside the sphere of direct response marketing, which Amazon absolutely forces you down the line of, and Facebook doesn't always. Then Seth Godin said this really articulately the other day on a video I watched, and he's brought a new book out called This Is Marketing, but Seth Godin's always good on this stuff. The difference between brand advertising and direct response marketing is you cannot measure directly the response of brand advertising, which means there is no point in adding up the number of likes as a proxy for the strength of your brand, because that doesn't mean anything. Whereas if you actually took an advert in the New York Times and you just kept advertising with a beautifully designed customer avatar centric, really quality brand advertising, that even though you can't measure it, that might actually be more valuable. So I think that weird halfway house you can get on the internet is really dangerous territory, and I think you just put your finger on that. So I'm glad you did. I think likes, for example, are just fool's gold.
Well, Yes. Well, fool's gold is a strong phrase, isn't it? But I take your
Sorry.
point.
Yeah.
But here's what I would just say to you, and we're going to have a different conversation. One of our points down here is just alternate um, ways to acquire customers than advertising, and so the phrase I like to use is cost per social action. When
Hmm.
you do a campaign that's a brand campaign or a non-direct to consumer, not a direct response marketing campaign, where you want the sale to occur.
Hmm.
Like sales focused campaign is one thing, and if you're doing non-sales focused campaigns, then it's in the whole universe of things like follow me on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram, and sign up for my email list, and give me your phone number for my text SMS marketing campaign list. All of those are prospect building campaigns, and in those types of campaigns, they might be current customers, they might not be, but it's a communication goal in essence. And so the gist there is, what the phrase I like to use is cost per social action. So it's not cost per sale, it's cost per social action. And so how much does it cost you to get somebody to sign up for your email list, put their phone number on your text-based list, follow you on YouTube and follow you on Instagram? Let's say those four outcomes. If you spent $1 and somebody did each of those four, you've spent 25 cents per social action.
Hmm.
And so that math is really super important.
Yeah.
When we talk about one of the upcoming topics here, I'll dive into further. I'll connect the dots on that in a moment. But yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, my my strong pronouncement is all very dramatic, but it could be that it's complete nonsense or it's overcooked. What I would say though is this: I would pay so much more money for an email list acquisition or a phone number than a YouTube subscriber, and I'd pay
Sure.
more for that than a like.
There you go.
Put
Yeah.
it that way. I don't think all things
Hmm.
are of equal value, which doesn't mean that
Hmm.
that invalidates your points. I mean, maybe there is
Hmm.
a value to be put on a Facebook like. It's
Hmm.
just maybe finding the right sort of
Yeah.
number. I suspect the number's a lot lower than a lot of people prepared to
Yeah.
spend, but
Right.
that's a different thing. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So let's jump into the fourth one. So the fourth thing is review your campaigns often. Don't let them run unchecked. When your ads are skyrocketing in cost, the thing you want to do is really, really monitor you in increments that are much tighter. So you want to accelerate the frequency with which you clip off the ones that are really costing you a ton of money, and really look to see what's working, what's not working. And so you just have to increase your intensity of management when ads are skyrocketing. And it's pretty obvious, but I mean, we would all do that intuitively anyway, but it should be, I think, put on the list. It's important to not neglect or forget about your ads and just let them run in times when, especially if you have it rigged up so that it will run expensively. And
Yeah.
it's better to set up your ads so that they won't spend money unless they meet your strict criteria than letting them blow money and not have super strict criteria inside the ad set. And so that's just something to think through. You don't want to just turn on the spigot and let the platforms do whatever they want with your money.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for a blowout on your budget. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. Again, the Google platform, Facebook particularly, and I think Amazon increasingly, they're basically their economics are basically driven by ads. I mean, Amazon doesn't look like it is, but it mostly is. AWS to one side, right? Everything about the retail store. So yeah, the idea of trusting them to spend your money wisely is just not going to fly. But I
Yeah.
would say the other error is that modeling up things that are partly working and partly not because it's working, you don't want to touch it. So when you launch on Amazon, for example, it's not a bad idea to have a rather aggressive auto campaign because the algorithm is quite good at figuring out what keywords are going to get a product to sell and please their customers. But over
Yeah.
time, what you need to do is then pull out the keywords from that are working and
Yep.
put them into their own manual campaign. So you get control and visibility to pull
Yep.
out the keywords that aren't working, use negative exact match. And then eventually you need to get the bids correct as well. So you need to refine, you need to sort of pass things out. It's called peel and stick, I think, in the old Google Ads
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
You take the things out that are working, you take the things out that aren't. and then you refine the bid so you're only bidding as much as you need to, and that could include day parting and other sort of complications. At that point, my advice honestly is to use an advertising agency, or if you got a smaller account and it's not worth the overhead, artificial intelligence, because trying to manually manage the bids for 100 keywords for one product is going to drive you a bit nuts. But if you've got 100 products, it's just impossible.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And there's a lot of nuance there, isn't there, for how to do that effectively. But
Yeah.
in general, top line suggestion is look deeply into what you're doing and review it frequently and tune it up as you go. And I think most of us over time the question is, do we get increasingly competent at the tuning it up? It's almost like performance, like race car engines or something like it. If you give me a race car engine, I will more than likely break it than I would get it to work better.
Yeah.
So,
Same
but
here.
some people are better at tuning than others. And so
Yeah.
but if you're going to be in this business, you're going to want to get better at just some basic disciplines to say, I've got something working okay. How do I make it work really well? Or I can identify that this is not working and there's no value in it. There's like no good part of this and I
Yeah.
need to dump it. And so that's the basic idea. Okay, so the fifth idea follows on from that, and that's constantly be testing new ads. So you constantly want to look for new creative in terms of photography, videography, copywriting, headlines, all of the elements that will go into an ad, and ask the question, are they working? What's working best? Can I beat my best performer? That split test, bake off, if you will. What's the best thing? Is it's constantly part of it. And I think a lot of us as advertisers get complacent, and we get tired of our own ideas. We get tired of our own topics. We get tired of our own key phrases and keywords, and we just don't spend the time to creatively repackage for a new audience or for an audience that maybe has heard it before. And you have to figure out a way to creatively re-engage them. And so I think that constant, split testing, constantly, altering ideas to try a new thing is really important. Thoughts on
Agree
that?
with that.
Yeah.
I just think two thoughts. The first thing is that the advertising is the flip side of where the ads go to, so the conversion mechanism. So if you're trying to capture email addresses, for example, how well set up is your email capture? And obviously there's a more complex interaction that if you change the traffic, you change how it responds. But let's be simplistic about it and say, if you are finding that your advertising to sales ratio or advertising cost per acquisition of an email, for example, is higher than you want it to be, the first thing I would do is tweak the conversion side and be testing that. I would A/B test the conversion side and leave the traffic side the same.
Sure.
And then for sure, I would also be testing new ads. That's definitely true. So I think it's both things. It just struck me that it's easy to kind of see just one side of it. And actually, the good thing about conversion testing is if you get that right, generally it sticks around, whereas advertising costs can go up driven by a platform.
Yeah,
So,
totally right.
we hadn't mentioned that so far, but it just occurred to me we ought to talk
No,
about
you're
that.
totally right. There's 3 or 4 or 5 components that go into all of these ads, and you do want to test all sides of them. Okay, so that's the fifth idea. The sixth idea is you want to try alternate ad platforms. Obviously, if you're only selling on Amazon and you only have the Amazon advertising option available to you, then fair enough. But even in Amazon advertising platform, you've got 3 or 4 different ad types that you can try. But beyond that, obviously, you can try to acquire new customers and make sales happen off many, many platforms. Facebook is the undisputed winner in social. Google is the undisputed winner in search, but there are many other platforms available to you that you can find success on. And in fact, in advertising, it's a lot of cat and mouse with your competitors. Like, where are they not advertising so that you don't compete with them on pricing on the ads? And so you really don't want to just be where they're at. You want to be where they're not at. To really win the day on those places, and be where they're at to just, kind of be in the mix with them on the places they're at. So by that, I would suggest you look into alternate ad platforms, including things like Pinterest, which is really underused. as an ad platform. YouTube, which is very frequently underused because it depends on video ads, which is a barrier to entry. And then there's all kinds of energy in new ad platforms like Snapchat and TikTok. And there are many, many, kind of new exciting opportunities to, spend money in creative ways if you look into, broader, options beyond just Facebook ads, Google ads, and Amazon ads.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love what you said. Be strong where your competition isn't, or they're not very strong. That makes a lot of sense. Searching for the gaps.
Yeah.
I would say another trend to watch, just in general, but particularly with advertising, because it's so expensive when it's not good, is when you've got a big spike in users joining a platform and they've only just started monetizing, or it's just not that used yet. TikTok is the classic example of that. I would have said Amazon ads was that thing in 2014. Facebook ads was probably that a while ago. So that's an important thing. The other thing is, if you're an Amazon seller, then you don't have much choice yet. Alternative platforms as such, normally the additional cost won't be wiped out by increased sales. But you can, for launch or customer list building, go for alternatives. But as you say, the Amazon headline brand ads and video ads are still underused. I mean, I'm not sure they're going to reduce your ad spend, but they may buy you more presence, which could drive the overall mix to work more effectively. You might increase your revenue without hugely increasing your ad spend. So they're certainly worth testing. I mean, they are being used more. People are tending to adopt them, but I would almost basically look for anything that's new and try it, because most people won't do it, and anything that's a bit difficult because there's a barrier to entry, like video ads. I think getting good at video ad creation generally is wise, because most people are a bit lazy and scared about it, but actually you could do it a lot more cheaply in e-commerce than most people think. If you put together some quality still photographs, there's still a lot of things with some quite big brands doing that, and doing it very effectively. So that's a good skill set in general to get down. Whether it's going to be on YouTube or TikTok or Amazon that it pays off best is going to vary over time.
Yeah.
But as a skill set, there's generally a mental barrier for most people. So that's a good reason to get it correct, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so it is interesting how much goes into this, isn't it? It's like, man, this is like Pandora's box.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Okay, so the seventh suggestion we have for you is try alternate advertising methods if you are experiencing skyrocketing prices. And what do I mean by these alternates? Not just beyond platform ads, not just advertise on Pinterest, advertise on YouTube, but you can try wholly different things with your advertising dollars. And here are a couple. Contests, which is my favorite, which I talk about all the time. You can run a contest, and the phrasing that I used previously in this conversation about cost per social action, that's the phrase we use when we run contests. So, and we do this for our clients, we run them, and you would be shocked to see how well these work. Frequently, we'll have contests work for clients, and their cost per social action is literally pennies on the dollar. And so they're spending pennies to get people to sign up for their email list and follow them on YouTube, or take all the actions. And we even have the contest set up for direct response, so that when you enter the contest, you get, for example, give a coupon to buy something on your website or one of your products after people enter your contest. Then you have that coupon that you can immediately see how well it monetizes. So you can directly attribute real sales to your contests. So contests are really a Swiss Army knife that allow you maximum flexibility. And I love them for many reasons, and I would encourage you to try them if you haven't. I have a whole training on Udemy all about contests. Go check it out. And I really love that one. In fact, spoiler alert, Michael, we're about to launch a contest for our podcast listeners. And I ran a contest that I'm going to announce the winner to in a moment as well. So that's super exciting. But I'd love people to try contests if they haven't. I know it feels weird. It's like doing something you ever tried before, like when somebody says, hey, you should try feng shui, or you should try to learn some new thing. You're like, what? I don't know anything about that. But trust me, they work really well, and you can do well with them. A few other ideas. You can push into influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is all the rage. It continues to be all the rage. I just watched a training by the TikTok marketing team this last week, and their whole angle was finding TikTok video makers that are really successful and using them as influencers. And the interesting piece that they said there was, you can go on TikTok, find really creative video makers, and they don't have to be in your niche or industry. And this was the key insight that they were trying to explain. And I was like, do I believe that? And I was like, yeah, maybe I do. You can just go find some interesting video maker on TikTok and then say to them, hey, this is what we do. Do you think you could do an interesting, 30-second commercial in essence for us? And you'll get a lot of creative energy, a lot of different style of, art and performance presentation than you would if you just go to your specific industry and use the tried and true influencers in that space. Okay, so that's the second one. Third one would be you should absolutely try text SMS campaigns. We have clients that have ROI on their text SMS campaigns that are literally like insanity. Like, for example, it's not uncommon for us to hear, I spent $6 on my text campaigns and I made $4,800. Like stuff like that. I hear comments like that frequently from our clients because we're helping them all set up their text SMS marketing. And that's a whole new universe, and it works really, really well. So you've got to try alternates to just straight advertising. There you go. Thoughts on that, Michael?
Wow. Certainly some fantastic stuff. I mean, first of all, to reflect on the last thing, SMS marketing obviously is, SMS is as old as phones are, and almost as old as the internet. Well, pretty much older. And yet it's been weirdly underutilized by e-commerce sellers. To a weird degree, I guess, because it costs a bit of money to sell in text or something. I don't know, but I think it's an open secret in theory. But the fact that your clients are getting such incredible results is making me rethink again just whether, in fact, with that kind of level of result, it would actually work for Amazon sellers, even without any, email lead capture or whatever everything else. A lead nurture sequence. I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
That's really mind blowing. So that's certainly making me think again.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
I was going to say influencer marketing is something that, again, even if it works on Amazon, folks, it's going to work incredibly well with the direct-to-consumer site. Let me put it that way, because the economics are so brutal on Amazon.
Yeah.
Because you get one chance to wipe out your cost of acquisition of a customer with one product sale. I mean, occasionally more, but influencer marketing is incredibly effective. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. Is it a paid advertising method? It can be. It can equally be, purely social, but in the end, it all comes down to spending money. Either managing it, your own staff or whatever. So in a way, it's money in, money out, isn't it? And influencer marketing is great for this reason. You're building relationships, and you never know where a business relationship will go. If you sort of pivot in your business in 5 years' time, the same people might help you go a completely different direction. I've seen that more than once.
Yeah.
The second thing is you're building brand, a reputation, and perception of quality and value at the same time as doing direct response, which is brilliant. So if somebody, a third party, says, Mike's shoes are the best I've ever tried on, you got to try these babies. They're normally $79 a pair, but you can get a special coupon off. You've got an endorsement at the same time as a revenue driver.
Right.
And you've made a friend as well. I mean, so I love a relationship-based business broadly.
Yeah.
It's underutilized because it takes work and skill and human skill as well as numbers. Yeah. And for that reason, I think it's just an amazing skill set to develop.
The other thing I love about influencer marketing is when, let's say, for example, you go find a TikTok, creator who's really good, and it makes you, in essence, a commercial. You've paid them to be the influencer. You also get rights to the commercial, the asset, the video, if you set it up that way, that you can then put on your product page. You can, use in ads. You're paying for an asset, and so that's really valuable. I think of these three things: contest, influencer marketing, and text SMS. The most cutting edge, the most effective that I'm seeing is through text SMS marketing. Now, it is a game for people who have a Shopify site because you have to collect the phone numbers. and then you, in essence, can market to the people. And so it's really head and shoulders above the rest right now. I think people struggle sometimes with contests, and sometimes contests don't work for specific brands or audiences. And people struggle with influencer marketing because it's a lot of relational work, or it can be. But the text SMS stuff is more what you might call a technical marketer's dream, because it's just direct response marketing. It's just collecting the phone numbers with specific strategies, and then campaigning to those people with specific strategies, and it's really, really working well. So anyway, so this is our seventh suggestion. Any concluding thoughts on that? And then I want to get to our announcements of our own contest as well.
I think the final thing I would just want to say, and then I'd love you to recap these. These are great, robust, straightforward, but thought-provoking things. So I think the final thing to say is be honest if you're struggling with a particular platform. And if you're forced to use Amazon ads, which as an Amazon-based seller, you will have to be, then be honest if you're struggling with it. I have to say, I'm not trying to sort of blow my own trumpet for this, but I think masterminds are great for this. And here's why. Many agencies exist for Facebook ads, Google ads, or Amazon ads. You will notice that they tend to pride themselves on how much money they have spent. But I always have to just pause when I hear that. We've spent 50,000. I'm like, how is this good? That's my money. What they're inclined to do is spend money and be clever. If they're good at getting a return on investment for you, some of them are amazing. Many are variable. I don't know why, whether it's the interaction between my clients and the ads agencies out there, but there are not that many success stories. The advertising platforms that are supposed to manage stuff for you sometimes work well, but not as well as advertised normally. But there's normally somebody in the mastermind. In my experience, you've got 10 people who's really good at this stuff, and most other people are mediocre or just struggling. If that's you, I would say the following things, and it's really important. First of all, be honest if you suck at this stuff. I'm not great at PPC. I was very tempted to add into some training I was developing recently, and I rewrote the training to remove that, so that I'm not teaching that, because I'm not great at this stuff. I'm not bad. I've seen them obvious mistakes. I could talk in generalities, but I would never put myself in charge of this. The second thing is you copy strategies or tactics from people that work. That can often be very effective. But in the end, the best people to get to manage for you are the people who are doing it, or they've got people they've trained. Or they found that they hired 2 VAs to manage the ads, and they only can afford to take one. Take the other one. Those kind of down at home, knowing the person intimately situations, that's the only place where I've actually found people get real headway in this stuff. The rest of it that on paper seems to work doesn't seem to work. Agencies, training, I don't know why, but I've not seen a lot of success with the Amazon ads world, and more broadly with Facebook ads either. So totally. Don't know what your experience is of that.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. It's always a love-hate relationship with having agencies run the work for you. We've gone back and forth. We've had it done different ways over the years. I think the cleanest, smartest way is to have an in-house VA work with you closely. I have a friend. He's from Ireland. His name's Mike. I call him Irish Mike. His whole business is based on advertising. He generates leads for salespeople and then sells them. And so he spends a lot of money. And I asked him, like, who do you have do all this for you? He said, I've never been able to have an agency do this for me. I have a couple people who help me, and I'm the, master advertiser. And then he has people who help him. But because, that's the hard part of it is, some of this you can try to hand off, and you think the expertise of those people will be proven better than your own industry insight yourself. And frequently, I think what we find is you can learn advertising faster than advertisers can learn your industry or your niche.
Very, very well put. I think there's something about numbers generally that can be like that. I think you can possibly learn finance quicker than you can teach an accountant about e-commerce.
Your business.
It's weird, isn't it? I have to say that if you're not good at it, you definitely should hire somebody else to train your people. I think the ideal thing is this, to own the mechanisms and the SOPs and the strategies, but not necessarily invent them yourself if you're not good at that. That's when I think copying another person who is good at it and getting somebody else to implement it for you can be a halfway house that can work. It's not an easy one, but it's worth worth sweating over that piece.
Well, let me recap the list here, and then we're going to announce a new contest we're kicking off. So that's super exciting. And let's go for it. So this is the recap of the 7 suggestions if your advertising is skyrocketing, your ad spend. Stay within your budget range between 8 and 15% of total revenue. Number 2 is have clear goals. What are you trying to spend the money on, and how are you parsing those out? Number 3 is know your numbers. Calculate things like your cost to acquire a customer, cost per click on platforms, etc. Number 4 is review your ad campaigns often. Don't let them run unchecked, and learn to tune them up effectively. Number 5 is constantly be testing new ad ideas. Number 6 is try alternates to ad platforms, such as advertising on Pinterest, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Bing, etc., etc. Find the alternates. Number 7 is try alternates altogether, which include things like contests, influencer marketing, and text SMS marketing. So if you'll do those things, you'll have a good toolbox or set of strategies to combat situations in which your ad costs skyrocket. There you go.
Yeah, great list. Good list. And so I've gone from being, a miserable person with skyrocketing ad costs to feeling more empowered now. So hopefully we've taken you on that same journey. And so tell me about that, the contest that we're running, because obviously you're the expert. You've set it up. You know all about running contests. So to give us the details of that.
Yep. Super excited about it. And then we'll do that. And then we'll also announce the winner of $1,000 contest I ran not long ago. That's super exciting. I'll tell you about that. And we're going to announce the winner right here. And that'll be a breaking news. Okay. So the contest we're running for the e-commerce leader is at contest.theecommerceleader.com. So just go to contest.theecommerceleader.com. It's a subdomain, obviously, on our site. And you'll be able to enter our contest. We're going to give away a $250 Visa gift card. And the entry methods are to subscribe to our podcast. So pick your player of choice. We've got Spotify or Apple as the 2 options, or you can certainly do both. You can also refer the contest to your friends and earn points. All of the actions that you do earn you points, and it just will kind of be available to you to enter between now and the end of July 2021, if you're watching this or listening to this far in the future. So it's running from today through July 31st, 2021. We'd love to have you check it out. We'll have links in the show notes. We'll have links in our email. We're doing this because our goal is simple. We want to incent and encourage everyone to become a subscriber to our podcasts on the various players, because that's how our podcast gets better visibility, bigger visibility. And so that's the goal of it. It's void where prohibited, no purchase necessary. If it's prohibited in the UK, Michael, I don't know all the UK laws. So if it's void there, it's void there. Yeah, I know that the state of Rhode Island is not keen to open contests like this, so it's void there. But if you're in the U.S., then it's beyond Rhode Island, and it's obviously you're eligible to enter. And so we're really excited to kick it off today. And we'd love to have somebody win a $250 Visa gift card, which they can use on advertising somewhere if they'd like, or they can use it to buy some products if they'd like, or just use it however they'd like to in their business or beyond.
Excellent. Well, there's no laws in the UK that I know of that prohibit contests. It's quite a common thing here. So I don't think there's a legal barrier. So as long as it works, I tested it out earlier. I think it works. So if you're UK based or somewhere else in the world, give it a whirl. If it doesn't work, then apologies. We're not trying to fool anybody here, but I believe it works. Yeah. We'll find out through testing. And that's what we do. Try stuff out and you find out from doing it. So the worst thing is you might subscribe to a great podcast, and the best thing is subscribe to a great podcast and put yourself in the running for a $250 prize. So I don't think there's any big downside and there's a big upside. So the risk reward ratio is in your favor, folks. I would just get on and subscribe. And
do it. And somebody's going to win. So if you're the only one who enters our contest, you will be the winner. But we hope that many people will. It's easy. So contest.theecommerceleader.com is where you see it. And feel free to jump into it. You can enter easily on your phone or on your computer. So either way is great.
Yep. Great. Exciting times.
All right. Love it. Okay. Now, on to the final point of the show here today. I ran a contest recently, and it was a video based entry contest, and we had a great time with it. And we basically just asked people, tell us your Amazon sales story, like in general, like what was your, why are you selling on Amazon and how's it gone? And we got some amazing videos. And we use this little tool called Video Ask. It's just a little app, and it's actually quite a good tool. If you want to check it out, it's kind of cool. And you make a very simple little contest, and we did that, and we got some fantastic videos back, and we were giving away $1,000 gift card. And so the winner is Susan Gilbert. Woohoo! Susan, way to go. Thank you for entering the contest, and thank you everyone who entered the contest. It was really, really cool. And honestly, people's entries were really awesome. So we're going to make a montage video out of it. We told everybody we'd be using it publicly. And so we're going to make a little montage. And in one of our upcoming challenges or public trainings, we'll have that be one of the video components to it on kind of the front end. And so, Susan, way to go. Thank you for your fun entry. And we're really, really excited that you won. Hopefully you'll have a blast with $1,000.
Hey,
so there you go.
Nice juicy prize.
By
the way,
right?
I think everybody should go through your contests. I mean, including the e-commerce leader one, because you're such a master of them. And just look at the marketing asset you've gained from that. And there's nothing to stop that being an e-commerce version either. It's just the greatest video marketer that I know of, Rick Cesare, who was behind so many of the innovations in the 80s and 90s of direct response TV, basically, was that the main thing he did was go and interview users of the product and then put that together. And you learn a heck of a lot about your product that way. So if it's not so good, you don't have to put it on air. You can learn from it, but also you can learn what people are really passionate about. And then it's amazing, just as reviews are social proof and increase conversion rates. So video testimonials do the same thing. So super smart, man, and I'm glad you got such great results. And this is the way to go. You've just neatly wrapped up the episode with an living example of how great contests can be in terms of what you get from it as a marketer.
There you go. Awesome. Well, as always, it's an honor. So let's wrap up the podcast here, and then we'll see people in the next episode. So thanks, everybody, for listening. And as always, your sign up or subscription to the podcast on your player of choice is always helpful, as is your review. So thank you so much for that.